Are you going to take what the news media says about meat as truth? Or are you actually going to research how companies like Old Salt Co-op, in one of the most beautiful places in Montana, is actually helping the planet and saving the world one steak at a time? It's time for you to decide whether the meat business is bad or good for the planet. After watching this video, you will be able to make a more informed decision on whether businesses like this actually are worth supporting, and maybe even have the opportunity to see it firsthand by coming here yourself. Hi, I'm Trinity Vandenaker, the cowboy with the coffee cup, and welcome to Life in the West. How's it going?
How you doing? Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It's kind of crazy to happen on a ranch, isn't it?
It is. So you got...
Here's got the Thomas team is helping us to optimize our marketing strategy.
So we're on the Mannix Ranch right now, which is some of the most beautiful country in Montana for sure. They're really trying to do something unique. They're selling their beef through a restaurant and also a festival out here, right?
Yeah, so Mannix is part of a group of ranchers that is building a meat brand called Old Salt Co-op. And we do all kinds of things. We've got 2 restaurants now, the Outpost and the Union, both in Helena. We've got a festival, and these things help to promote the e-commerce meat brand. And so today, to kind of add some juice to the festival promotion, we've got this team from Thomas, which is based out of Missoula, kind of helping to optimize our digital marketing strategy. So we set up Starlink, and
I was going to say, I saw a Starlink dish. You set that up. You got cords right here going over to this table of all the people.
Elon Musk doesn't know it, but he's going to help revive ranching across the region. I'll tell you what.
Exactly.
It's actually working pretty good out here.
Is it?
Yeah.
And
we used it last year for the festival.
Today? You just set it out?
We just came today and set it up and got our subscription live yesterday. But we've had this dish from last year's festival.
Okay.
We needed to figure out how do we, people pay for parking passes and how do they pay for food and at the festival event.
Because there's no cell service here, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So how big is this festival going to be? I mean, where are you going to put it?
We're out
here
in
the middle of nowhere.
People here.
1,600 people.
Yeah, and this year we're aiming for 3,000.
Okay.
We've got 18 bands. We've got 3 amazing chef teams. For example, Sunday, Spike Jurdy of Woodbury Kitchen in Maryland is bringing it's a Chesapeake mashup of blue crab and oysters with Montana beef and lamb and hogs. And that's cooking on these outdoor fires all day long. The day before that, there's a wood-fired team called Tournant out of Portland that's coming, and they'll provide it's basically 4 courses of tapas each day that are just kind of bites.
What are
just like little plates, little bites.
Okay.
So and then on Friday, Eduardo Garcia's team from Montana Mex out of Bozeman area is going to be here. There's a whole tent that's just maybe 200-300 people that's completely dedicated to conversations about agriculture, conversations about fisheries restoration, conversations about conservation easements, conversations about how do we capitalize the regional infrastructure we need to rebuild kind of a more medium scale agriculture, everything from the supply chain to processing, to distribution, to market access.
You mean trying to get the distribution and the regional food back instead of trying to pump all this food directly through the
it's people,
massive
it's
global chains.
Little brands from across the region, some of them in Montana and some of them much further afield. Like Cairn Springs is a group of farmers in Washington and Oregon who are building a mill to try to do the same thing we were trying to do for meat in their region. So they'll be here.
A mill?
A grain mill, a flour mill.
Really? Okay, so they're doing the same thing you're doing for cattle, but on a grain. Okay.
So we've got, that tent is just completely dedicated to connecting people who are doing these projects, entrepreneurs with funders who are looking for the next project. There's poets and authors who are speaking about fly fishing, and they're speaking about recreation, and there's iron forging demos and mule packing demos, and kind of a livestock handling demo that'll just happen out here behind me, where a woman from Texas is coming out to kind of just show her technique of working with yearlings in a small pen. And
yearling cattle, right?
Yearling cattle, yeah. And there's you can't see it from exactly right here, but we'll go over and I'll show you Eagles Point, which is like one of my favorite things we do an anvil launch. So it's an old Hibbard family ranch tradition where you blow an anvil 300 feet into the air with black powder.
Oh,
that
seriously?
That happens right at the base of Eagles Point. We call this little
that
formation.
point right there, that little formation. Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that happens on Friday and on Saturday.
That sounds exciting. Holy cow! You're sort of
Don't tell
blow up an
insurance
anvil?
companies. Is there,
Yeah.
insurance is going to see this,
no,
right?
Don't watch this if you're insurance.
And then up on the other side, so we do a pasture walk each day. On the other side of Eagles Point, there's a little stage where we'll have some music and poetry on both Friday and Saturday. So people are car camping and they're glamping and they're camping in RVs, and some of them are traveling in from just day tripping from Helena or Missoula. But last year, besides, Helena, Missoula, the Flathead, Billings, Great Falls, we had people from Hawaii and Maine and North and South Carolina and Texas and Colorado. It's really just, the whole event is about the culture that it takes to have a regenerative agriculture, the culture that it takes to support thoughtful stewardship of land. What it really is, ultimately stewardship just means the time and the resources and to manage complex ecosystems, to be agriculturally productive at the same time as maintaining or increasing fertility over time.
And what it, kind of showing what it produces too.
Yeah, right.
It produces family and produces food, and
it produces a very, and in this case, a very intact landscape.
Right.
Intact for production, intact for communities, intact for wildlife. Everything from grizzly bears to migratory birds to wolves to the whole range of wild critters that includes people.
That's right. And there's a lot of grizzly bears around right here, isn't there?
I think Fish, Wildlife and Parks estimates anywhere between 70 and 80 adults that are usually in the bottoms throughout the summertime. When I was growing up, on the north end of this valley, grizzly bears were mostly in the Scapegoat Wilderness, the Bob Marshall Wilderness. If you keep going through that wilderness area, you'll get to Glacier Park.
Right.
But now, 20 years later, grizzlies are denning at the south end of the valley here on the ranch. They're very present all spring and all fall, just right down here in the bottoms. And so they're definitely moving and expanding and becoming more comfortable in this area.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's just because it's a pretty good habitat for them, and there's been a lot of partnerships with groups between ranchers and groups like the Blackfoot Challenge to reduce conflict with ranching and wildlife, because a lot of those same conservation groups have just realized, wow, big intact ranches are great for habitat.
There's a misunderstanding, I think, of people that don't live out here, and it's very good for them to get to come out and see it and see what it produces. I mean, see the intact land. This is not, if you didn't use this for agriculture, its only purpose would be to be subdivided or put under houses or something like that. And we're right like this, it's wide open space for wildlife and amazing ecosystems, and you're growing grass because you're grazing it and irrigating it and fertilizing it with the cattle, and it's just incredible. So when is this festival, the festival you're
It's
doing?
coming up just a month. It's on the solstice, so June 21st through the 23rd.
June 21st to the 23rd.
So it's a Friday through Sunday, 3-day festival.
And they can camp, people can camp here?
Yeah, there'll be car camping and RVs all out behind me here.
So out just right in this field?
In these fields,
okay.
Yeah, just behind me. Across that canal, there's a bridge a little further down where there's more camping. Some of the glamping tents will be set up over here. You can see they're already working on the road.
I see that, yeah. And what website do they go to find this?
They go to oldsaltfestival.com.
Oldsaltfestival.com.
That's right.
Okay.
They can also go to oldsaltcoop.com, and there's a festival page there. And that's where we do day tickets or weekend tickets or whatever your pleasure is.
Okay. So that festival is part of what you're doing. Now, when you come to the festival, once you pay to get into the festival, then you can get the food and the entertainment and everything in there, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so there's 4 courses of these tapas that are prepared by the chef team. So we set up these cinder blocks into these big fire pits, and we we cook on cherry wood from the Flathead area.
Oh, okay.
And so it's just this live fired production. We've got domes and cauldrons, domes to hang primals over the fire, these little iron crosses where we'll set up whole lambs to cook, and then these cinder block ovens. So those chef teams each day produce 4 courses of bites for people to enjoy, and that's part of your ticket. The music is part of your ticket, all the speakers and the authors, and there's a big artisan store with 40 different artisans that are making things out of knives and things out of wool and things out of leather, and they're making art. There's like 20 different nonprofits that are setting up and talking to people about the work that they do. And then there's also food trucks, so people that want ice cream or coffee or they want
extra stuff,
they can buy that. So, you know, the Helmville is kind of a place out of time in a lot of ways. I mean, it's this tiny little town with a robust ranching community, but just if you go into town, blink and you'll miss it. There's a bar and a little K-8 school. But this place comes alive in June, man.
So just to kind of reference where we're at here, we're by Helmville, Montana. So we're how far away from the nearest town that's of any size?
We're about an hour upriver to the east from Missoula, and about an hour to the northwest from Helena, and about an hour and 20 minutes from Great Falls. If you drew a triangle between Great Falls and Missoula and Helena, we'd be kind of right smack dab in the middle of that triangle.
Okay.
There's a couple of smaller towns about a half hour away: Ovando, Lincoln, Drummond,
right.
Avon.
Lincoln's sort of a town. It's got some restaurants and stuff. It's a town. Now Helmville, how many people are in Helmville? I mean, this is a remote, which is so fantastic that you're doing it here, is what I'm saying, because and people that want to really experience something totally different from your normal everyday life, this is an amazing place to do it. So how many people are in Helmville? There's like...
In the town of Helmville, there's maybe 15?
15, yeah. I was going to say, it can't be that many.
K through 8, there was 2 kids in my class, and by the time I was an 8th grader, I was the only kid graduated from my class. So I was valedictorian. I won it by a landslide.
Did you? Wow. That's a good thing. If you would have lost it,
that's the only thing I ever won.
I see. Yeah, me too. I didn't even get that. But yeah.
But it's a great little community, and there's probably several hundred people in the valley, and it's super tight-knit. Same people teaching that are and ranching that are on the fire department and the rodeo club board. We have a Labor Day rodeo every year that a lot of people, maybe 2,000 people, will come for that weekend, just show up in the Helmville Valley just to experience an old-time rodeo.
Did they do that over in Ovando then?
No, it's right here.
Oh, they have rodeo grounds here.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's about 3 miles away from here.
Okay, all right. And you grew up here then?
I did, yeah. My first parts of my family got here in the 1860s, and then I'm a Mannix. The Mannixes got here in 1882, mostly Irish. And then my mom and my dad and my dad's 2 brothers and their spouses and 3 of my siblings and 4 first cousins all work here and work the ranch.
Is he your brother?
He's my younger brother.
Okay, I was going to say.
We're best friends. I could say that.
Yeah, you can say that about him? Yeah, well, brothers are brothers, right? I mean.
So Logan for 20 years, he has managed the Mannix family beef program. So we have a local brand, maybe about 30% of what we raise is sold through Mannix beef here in Montana, and everything else is sold as calves and yearlings on the commodity market. So Logan's on the board of Old Salt. He and I, along with the rest of the ranches that are part of Old Salt, kind of came together and said, by ourselves as a family, we don't have the capital or the expertise. I mean, look at all the people here helping with marketing today.
Right.
By ourselves, we can't build a processing plant and keep that busy. By ourselves, we can't build restaurants out. By ourselves, we can't figure out the distributions. We can't really build significant relationships with enough customers to find a market.
Right.
But together with Old Salt, we can raise the capital to build the infrastructure. We can recruit the talent that it takes to create a little medium-sized meat company that can really diversify markets for these producers and get to know a group of people who share our values. Land is kin is what Old Salt says. Like, that's kind of our rallying cry, is like, land is a big community that includes people, but it includes a lot more, and we've got to be able to leave that better for future generations. And that really is going to mean that we've got to change the way meat is bought and sold in this country.
Yes. Right now, the reason he's talking about this is people think of ranching as one industry, but it's actually like a whole there's so many aspects to ranching before it gets to your plate and right now they're really most of the industry is controlled by just 4 companies. So everything just runs right to those companies. What that means is that when you spend your dollars in a grocery store, typically it doesn't stay in that community. All the money immediately goes out of our communities and is shipped to make a couple people really, really wealthy.
Yeah.
Or in many cases, it's even shipped right out of the country to make some people in Brazil really, really wealthy. So what they're doing is very complicated and requires an enormous amount of money up front to do, because you have to figure out not only now you're ranching, just raising the beef, but then you got to figure out the other steps, like, finishing and then butchering and then the retail aspects of it are all major hurdles.
One of the cool things I think for people might not know is that when you can stack different species of livestock on an operation, you can create some real ecological synergies. And so behind me, there's about 6,000 acres of sagebrush hills, native grass country.
Up on those mountains there?
Up in these mountains behind me. And you can see some of the family ranch buildings here in the foreground, and then that sagebrush country behind them. As I was growing up, there was a real huge noxious weed, knapweed problem. And it was starting to become a monoculture. And it's part of the legacy of kind of some of the timber companies that came into the West.
So first of all, monoculture, what is that?
It means that the knapweed plant starts to dominate, and it pushes out a lot of the native vegetation. And you're required by law to control it, and so a lot of people use chemical. And we had for a long time used Tordon. Spray Tordon, you try to kill the plant, but over time that also kills desirable species, and it also messes with microbes. So 25 years ago, Dad started working with Montana State University and a bunch of wildlife groups, Fish, Wildlife and Parks, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And we started using sheep to target when those knapweed plants would come to seed, and they would put out a seed head. We had a grant from the Sheep Institute, and we'd haul in like 1,500 sheep, and we'd target their grazing on these knapweed heads. And we were able to keep about 90% from going to seed each year. For 11 years we did this and saw almost no change. We were successful in keeping it from going to seed, but the seed survives in the soil for a long time. Like in year 13, that knapweed population started to crash, and I mean in a hurry. So it's 0 chemicals, but 1,500 more sheep from July 1st through September 1. And today that is a much more diverse native pasture that is thriving with very little knapweed. It's just one more plant that you might find out there rather than a dominant monoculture. And the thing about that little experiment is we don't own those sheep. They come in, they get free grazing, and we get the weed control. It's just a trade. But sheep were historically in this valley, and they can be managed to have an excellent impact on range and to manage weeds. They don't eat the same things that cattle do. You can target them differently because they move differently than cattle do, like an amoeba almost.
They're very flock.
They're a herd animal.
Yeah.
And if I can start moving sheep meat as well, if I can start selling lamb, this ranch can really find new sources of profitability to pay for the stewardship, to pay for the family to come back, my generation to come back and to spend their time and their talent and figuring out how do we optimize here, produce good food, get the chemical out, and manage diverse rangelands. And so the reason for Old Salt, if we can build a market for beef, we can build processing for beef. We've also built a market for lamb and processing for lamb. And if I can sell that, it's more revenue to these ranches to help keep the landscape intact and prevent subdivision. And at the same time, it's an ecological solution because we're able to fight these weed monocultures with animals rather than with chemicals. So building this kind of regional meat infrastructure is so much more than just diversifying our market for beef. It's the ability to stack in lamb. I would love to be able to run chickens someday. Behind me are some pivots where we graze intensively with cattle that are finishing, meaning that they're being brought to market weight in the summertime. And we've been able to get all the artificial fertilizer out on those pivots.
Really?
And even after seeing an initial decline in productivity over the first few years, now it's more productive than it ever was with artificial fertilizer. Problem with artificial fertilizer is you eventually hurt the microbial life.
Start killing all of it.
But I'd love to bring chickens behind those cattle and just that would be
Really fertilize
that
it, yeah.
much more fertility gain, and one more thing to sell. And so that stacking of enterprises and making the chickens work together with the sheep, work together with the cattle, it's better for the egg productivity, it's better for the environment, and we keep these big lands intact for all the other wild critters that are not part of the ag system.
Well, I think it's important to understand that more profit for ranchers, because people have a lot of people have a problem with profit for ranchers. You know, they're rich anyway. But really what they're talking about is the real estate part of ranching is wealth, not which they have to actually sell to make any money at.
That's right.
So there's two aspects to ranching: real estate and then their actual industry, which is cattle or sheep or farming or whatever it is on the land. So wealth in the land doesn't actually do you a whole lot of good.
Not
you
unless
have to
sell
make
it for subdivision,
right, unless you sell it to somebody who subdivides it or
makes it a private estate.
takes it out of production. So there are actual ways to help ranchers earn more profit, which means that this land stays like this, and at the same time help the environment in the same process. Whereas taking all the animals off the land is actually very detrimental environmentally to the land, and that's something. So I think it's a question that people have, like, why would we give ranchers more profit? Is that going to help them? You know, why do we want to help them? Well, that's why, because they're managing this right here.
Yeah, I mean, the question is like, how do you recruit good teachers? You've got to make that a living, that somebody who's talented and cares about teaching kids,
Yep.
can cultivate themselves to be that teacher and then to spend their life doing it. And I don't really know teachers that go into it for the economics, but still, you've got to be able to make a good living. If we were in it for the money, we'd have sold this for $50 million a long time ago, and we wouldn't have the work that we have in front of us. But instead, the goal of each one of these family members back is like, hey, maybe between the ranch owning my house and me not having rent and the wage I make, maybe my family could make $50,000, $60,000 a year, live in a place that's beautiful, that's intact, that we love, where we know our neighbors, and continue to just steward this land and hopefully not subdivide it and then pass it on to the next generation and hopefully keep it productive. The habitat's improving. The food has a great deal of integrity behind it, and that's something we're proud of. And so, yeah, you have to have profit to keep doing the work so that you can feed yourself and
That's right.
and allocate your time and talents.
But it also creates healthy food, which, I mean, way more healthy food in my opinion, and more humane food, I have to say.
I think if people, you know, the whole goal of it doesn't work very well, but this labeling and certification system on food, oftentimes it's deceptive. And if you
So
could just,
what do you mean by that?
it's that you cannot, in a few sentences or with a label, communicate very much at all to somebody who's not super familiar with ranching, all the details that went into production.
Right.
But the whole goal of a label ought to be like, how can I make this more transparent? And the festival for us is like the ultimate in transparency. Come here, smell the air, you know, smell the soil, come and look at the streams and the riparian areas and decide for yourself, is this trustworthy? Is this an intact ecosystem that I'd be proud to feed my family from?
Right.
I think anybody who came here and just saw it would feel that way.
Oh, absolutely.
And I want them to be able to make their own decision, but this is the ultimate in transparency. It's just come join us, celebrate with food and drink and music for a few days, and see for yourself.
Right. I think we often don't trust people to make a good decision, but we don't show them what's going on either. I mean, I've seen now, because I've been to Kansas and stuff doing some videos with Calicrate,
Right.
and seeing the industry, how the industry operates as a whole, that we're shifting all of our animals to, is like mind-blowing, that they feel that this is thought of as a better way to do it than having those cattle out there.
Right.
It's mind-blowing to me that would be healthier or better for the animals in any way, or the land, or anything. But for somebody to actually understand that, they have to come see it, right? So I do think that's awesome that you're showing them that with the festival itself.
Yeah, I mean, whatever profession you happen to work in, you know, whether it's tech or medicine, you're not going to be able to explain to me in 30-second sound bites.
No.
Or in a
Not unless there's 100 of them.
or in a 2-page or in a certification, you're not going to be able to really help me understand all the things you know. And it's the same with ranching and farming. Like if you're going to be productive, and you're going to be productive enough that you can provide that good product at a good price, and if you're at the same time going to be able to manage that ecosystem intact, there is so much that goes into learning that and explaining it and why you do what you do. A label really struggles to communicate that.
Exactly.
But being here, people are smart. At the end of the day, they have a good gut instinct for things. And you come out, you see this, I think people will find that it's trustworthy.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, we learn things. I mean, people might ask us a question about how you manage that riparian area. And we'll kind of explain how we do it now and what some of the challenges are. And they have a suggestion, and a lot of times that's turned into a good conservation project. We've learned things over the years, and we'll have a lot more to learn. But it's those relationships, whether it's with Fish Wildlife Service, Fish, Wildlife and Parks, Trout Unlimited, the Nature Conservancy, the Wilderness Society. They'll say, hey, we still do have a challenge over here, and what if you could turn this set of fences to be a little bit more wildlife friendly, where we raise the bottom wire a little bit? And we're like, never thought of that. That's a great idea. So it's more about that communication, and if it's done in a sort of a blame-free environment where it's just like, hey, have you thought about this? A lot of times people want to work with you.
Right.
It's like, sure, sounds great.
You mean instead of the environment of like, you should do this or you're an idiot, that kind of environment?
Right. I mean,
yeah, exactly. A community. We're talking community here, not, well, and I guess some communities are like that, but.
We're really lucky here in the last 30, 40 years. It's just a culture of collaboration in this valley. And, the world's changing around us, and change is inevitable, and it's just a matter of whether you say, hey, we're going to look at this change as an opportunity to get better. And there's new landowners in this valley over the last 10, 20, 30 years. Some people say, stay the hell out, we don't want change.
Right.
But actually those new landowners have brought new ideas, they brought capital, a lot of them, and they care about this place. And so understanding what they're interested in, us communicating the challenges we have, it's resulted in some awesome things.
That is an interesting thing that you say that, because a lot of times, I don't know, I feel that there's a right given to people that have lived here. I mean, I was born and raised in Montana. My parents and my grandparents and their parents were all born and raised here. But does that give me the right to be here any more than anybody else? Not really. No. It's so I like to see people who are creating food, not just eliminating food from our food supply, but creating food and helping the ecosystem. People are managing the land and loving what they do, but they have to have profit to love what they do. You can love what you do for a short period of time. If you don't have profit and you have the amount of stress that a rancher has, and you don't have any profit, that's not going to become fun for very long.
It won't last.
It won't last, and the kids won't stay.
That's true.
They won't stay on that next generation because they see their parents go through that struggle with no profit, and that I don't see that working. So, looks like everybody packed up.
I think they're
Are you moving?
Find a warmer place to have a meal.
No?
She's with Old Salt. She's
you're
helping us
with Old
market.
Salt?
Yeah, I'm with Old Salt.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you're just helping them, you guiding them through the process, this group over here?
Guiding is loose.
Okay.
She's a badass. She's came to try to help us get organized.
Yeah?
Yeah, we need, ranchers, we have a lot of shit we don't know.
Well, one of the things that you guys are doing is, the more I understand the industry of trying to circumvent this traditional system where we're just shoving our dollars globally instead of leaving them in the community, I understand that the main important part is retail of the whole project, right? Unless you can retail beef and meat and get to that customer and help them understand what the value of what they're buying is, you don't have a business, right? It doesn't matter how good you do all this if you can't sell it to somebody. And that takes marketing, in a digital world, which most ranchers don't understand in the least bit, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So how is that? I mean, because I see now you got a big team. You had a big team here.
Yeah.
They just left, but.
Well, it takes so many different skill sets. And,
Yes.
I think even on the ranching end, I'll just give an example. So Hillary Anderson, J. Barrell Ranch, is one of the Old Salt Ranch members. she started life as a wildlife biologist. What she was interested in is big wide open landscapes and wolf habitat. And she found her way into, now she's a full-time rancher because she was interested in how to keep land and habitat intact. And so she almost ranches in spite of cattle. Cattle are a tool, and her
Gotcha.
goal is habitat. And so
Is she around here?
so they ranch in Melville, Montana,
Oh.
and in the Centennial Valley of Montana. And then, like Logan, you have a background in public health,
Yep.
in anthropology.
And psychology.
She's a photographer.
So,
But it's like just meeting people like Logan who can bring their talents to, and you're not from Montana, but Sterling Drake, who's a musician and helping us put on the festival, he says it's not where you're from, it's why you're here. And it really, it takes talent like Logan and talent like this whole Thomas team that's helping us optimize our digital marketing to make this whole thing work. There's such a digital component now to marketing. And we
Huge.
can't go through the same old kind of stale commodity channels. That means we've got to skip straight and sell to the customer. How do we meet them? How do they find us? That's what this is about.
yeah.
Yep.
And we have so many different communities in Montana, is how do we reach them, right? And so I think so many people believe in what we're doing. It's just how do we tell that story in a way that really speaks to us as Montanans. So I think that's one thing that we're trying to do and do well.
It's crazy. I mean, cattle outnumber people here. But
Yes.
Of all the meat, we've talked about this before, of all the meat that's eaten in this state, less than 2% of it was raised and processed here. That's crazy. Making a dent in that, that's what Old Salt is for.
So you're saying 2% of the meat that's eaten in Montana or less is raised, and so that means there's 98% of the meat that's eaten in Montana, which has I think it was like twice as many cattle as people last time I checked. Or
I think we've got a mother cow herd of like 1.2 million.
okay, so
1.3,
it's about
not
it's
quite
more than
twice, but-
people, more cattle than people, and yet we're still exporting all of that out of the state and then back in as meat through a massive. When we say importing it back in to sell to customers, it's coming through a massive box chain store that's not from here.
Yeah, so it could be, it could have been from Montana, but you wouldn't know because it comes back
Exactly.
mixed with
everything.
everything. And so,
Yeah.
I think somebody asked me the other day, like, how is your meat different from Costco? And I said, well, what do you know about the meat from Costco? And other than whether it's prime or choice, zero.
Mm-hmm.
You have a visual, and I think they think of that meat as pretty high quality, and it's a good eating experience.
It can
But
be.
it can be.
Yeah.
But other than that, you have no idea whether the product had integrity behind it or not.
Right.
It's a commodity, and I think the definition of a commodity is it's something that's been stripped of all the things that make it different from its neighbor. It's stripped of all the color that all the details that factor into was the whole production process, from the way the people were treated to the way the land was treated. Did it have integrity? You can't know with an anonymous commodity product.
Well, and right now we can't even tell whether it came from the United States or not. So
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
because they don't have to label it. So,
So
it
are
looks
we
like-
having lunch?
We are having lunch.
What are you eating here? What, you got like 2 pieces of meat?
I know. Don't worry. I'll get a full sandwich.
You're gonna get more?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Union is one of the restaurants that we have at Old Salt, and so it's a partial butcher shop, partial restaurant. And so this is part of our provisions plate, which also is served on the restaurant side, but you could also get it for lunch. And so they'll shave different cuts of meat. So there's bresaola. There is like ribeye, like roast beef. There's a lot of different options. Mortadella.
And what's this?
I believe this is the roast beef.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So you just got some pieces of roast beef and
Yeah.
gotcha.
And that's what they used on the sandwiches was the roast beef. Exactly. No, the Union, it's been really great to see the Helena community come out.
What company are you guys from? All these guys?
Thomas, it's an acronym though. It stands for Tour Operator Marketing Intelligence Software, which is
Okay.
a mouthful. So
It is,
They're in
yes.
Thomas.
Thomas.
Yes.
Okay. And that's why it's spelled like without a H,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And an I guess, would be
Yeah.
the thing. So you guys are out here today to help the Mannix Ranch, or Old Salt, I guess, promote the festival and their beef and stuff, right?
Yeah, kind of the whole family of it. Mannix Ranch, Old Salt, the Union, which we had lunch on today. So, yeah.
And why? So you guys are here on a volunteer day though, so you're not getting paid for this. So why is it important for your company, the people that you work for, to do this for nothing for a company like this? What's important about this?
Yeah, I think being a local Montana company ourselves and just having the Montana values that a lot of businesses have, we find it important to give back to our community and other local businesses. And there's a friendship connection here that kind of brought us to this company. Wanted to step kind of outside of our typical industry and kind of apply our skill set where we can.
So ranchers, I mean, we're dealing with ranchers here. So
Yeah.
some of them just transitioned from flip phones, right? and they're running a business where like the important part of this is to actually get the food and the knowledge of what they do, right? The festival and everything to people, and that takes a lot of technical skills. So what are the people behind us working on right now? What are they doing? They're working on website, or their promotion, social media, what?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the online ecosystem has shifted drastically in even the last 4 years, right? So I think, looking behind us here, we got people working on the website. They're looking at the messaging. They're looking on it from a mobile and a desktop view. They're looking at how can users that visit Old Salt Fest both understand and be able to book or purchase meat directly from the Mannix Ranch, but how can they also get involved and book tickets to the Old Salt Fest and be a part of that community. So a lot of website work, which involves kind of technical layout, messaging, integrations that then, connect the marketing. So the website is set up to your email. It's set up to Facebook and Instagram advertising. It connects with your analytics, so you understand where consumers are coming from. So then you can either remarket to them, or you can market to a lookalike audience of them and keep growing your base.
My name is Evan Tipton, and I'm the founder and CEO of Thomas.
So now you guys took a day, and obviously that was your decision, right? Because you're the CEO. You took a day to help the Mannix Ranch in what they're doing with the festival and selling meat and everything. And you're kind of giving away a full day's work of your employees and everything. That's quite a bit. So why would you do that for a company like the Mannix Ranch or Old Salt? I guess you're doing this for Old Salt, right?
Yeah, kind of a hybrid, because the Mannix is becoming sort of infused with Old Salt.
Right.
I'm a big proponent that if your backyard doesn't support you, what are you doing? And if we can devote our expertise across the board for a full day, that's the least we could do, So they're fighting the same fight that pretty much all of our customers are, small to medium-sized businesses. I told the team today, think about meat as an experience. So it's not ziplining or rafting, but at the same token it is today. So yeah, everybody that you interviewed and looked at inside, we're trying to provide as much value as we can, as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, I'll bet. One day it's kind of a crunch, but
yeah, I know.
So you said something interesting though, but you're talking about meat as an experience, because so just me thinking about that right now, I'm thinking if you go to Costco or Walmart and you buy meat, the story is very simple. You're buying it with no story, basically.
Right.
You don't know where that came from. You have no idea how it was raised or anything. But when you're out here in the middle of this, and you're buying meat from somewhere like the Mannix Ranch or Old Salt or one of their restaurants, because they're selling it through restaurants as well, that is a story behind the meat that you're eating. Mm-hmm. And that's an experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a tough story to help them tell in a day. Our aim is basically to provide them the ammunition, recommendations, we should say, to move forward and execute upon, because we know what works. We've got a recipe that grows these small, medium-sized businesses. But yeah, I mean, that's why we're 45 minutes behind schedule today, because Cole has a great story. And
Yeah.
the Mannix family they're near and dear to my heart. This is, not just my favorite valley, but it's part of the reason I say that is also because of the people. And in order to make that viable and sustainable for generations to come, means that, hey, from a digital standpoint, we have to make that intersect with boots on the ground and what you guys are doing. So I thought, hey, not only do we play softball, fast pitch softball together, we can work together, and let's help them out. We're very much so like a values-based business. I'm a values-based business person. As a CEO, that's why we do these days, from Chat Unlimited to Clark Fork Coalition. Now here, like I said, if your own backyard doesn't support you, you're doing something wrong.
For more on the subject of learning how to buy your food locally and to support these companies like Old Salt, make sure to go to lifeinthewest.com. Right there on the front page is a link to my community where we discuss these things and you get all the updates and behind the scenes videos from me. So until next time, I'm Trinity Vandenaker. God bless.